Okay. Wow, what a crowd. We knew this subject and having John Dodd here would really bring people in. I'm excited to be here myself, and we're excited to have you. My name is George Davis. I'm on the BIMI board of directors, and it's my responsibility to share with you the BIMI mission, which is to provide educational programs and maritime activities, including marine science and marine heritage or maritime heritage, to residents and visitors on Block Island. And for those of you that have been at BIMI, thank you for coming and seeing our new exhibits this year, 5 new tanks and all the new work we did inside the building. And if you haven't, please take a look at the programs that we're offering every week in August. They range from adult programs like this to harbor tours on a launch to Andy's Way species collections, marine species dissections, dockside explorations, and other things for our younger and middle-aged and adult visitors. It's a lot of fun, and if you get here in the morning, you'll see just how many people are having a good time. Before we get started, just a couple of logistics, if you will. First, please be sure to turn off your phones. I just remembered to turn off mine. And if you have any questions, John, how would you like to handle them? As part of the presentation or at the end?
I don't mind them as part of the presentation, if that's good with you.
It's what's good with you.
Okay.
But the thing is, not everyone can hear your questions. So be patient, say them out loud, and then John or myself will repeat the question so the people outside can hear it. John is the executive director of the Atlantic Shark Institute, and he'll be sharing everything the ASI has been doing with great white sharks around Block Island since 2019. His talk will include the technology used, the methodology for the study, the location of the receivers used to detect the sharks, what has been learned to date, the importance of sharks in our ecosystem, and much more. With 15 white sharks, is that old now?
That's old.
It's old.
Yeah.
So this is only the second time this presentation has been given, but actually it will be somewhat unique because it's been updated today. So the 15 white sharks are now 16?
20.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I think with that introduction, you need me to go and hear from the guy that can tell you all about it. Welcome, John Dodd.
Thank you. Thank you, George. Appreciate that. And thank you for the warm welcome. Extra warm welcome, I think, in this room or Block Island today. It's a little toasty, so hopefully we can stay as cool as possible and maybe not move all that much. But I appreciate everyone coming out. It should be an interesting discussion. I'm going to tell you all about what we've been doing. I know everyone's interested in sharks and in great white sharks in particular. I'm not sure if I'm a friend of the Chamber of Commerce or an enemy in terms of the things that we've been talking about here, but these sharks have been here for a long time. This is not new. We don't suddenly have an influx of great white sharks here at Block Island. What we're doing is we're doing a better job of detecting these sharks and a better job of figuring out where they are, when they are, and technology is what this is all about. So I hope you enjoy it. My goal today is when we leave and we're done, I want everybody to know what we're doing, and you can share it with others. There's not a lot of mystery here. The goal is to demystify what we're doing so that everyone has a better understanding of what's going on around the island and in Rhode Island in general, and hopefully become an advocate for sharks and the research that we're doing. So when you came in very quickly, and I'll show this outside as well, this is not a real great white shark jaw. So first of all, this is not real. But this is a beautiful reproduction. Each tooth is molded and put in this shark jaw individually. This was from a 19-foot shark that was caught in California a couple of decades ago. Each tooth is placed, and you can come up and take a look at it later on. You can see how the teeth rotate in. They rotate out like an escalator, and they literally will rotate out and fall out, and a brand new sharp one will replace it. So sharks will go through thousands of teeth in their lifetime, and it's a wonderful specimen. You can feel free to hold it up, stick your face in it, get a picture. Just don't drop it. I'd ask you not to do that. I'll step out here quickly just to show everybody. So here it is, 19 feet. It's a beautiful specimen. So I'm going to leave it over. So later on, if you want to take a picture with it, feel free to do so. And you can see the back. You can see how all the teeth rotate through. Yeah, this is about as large as they get. Maybe a little bit larger, but this is from a 19-footer. 21 feet is the largest ever recorded on a great white shark. So enjoy it. Take pictures with it. Please don't drop it. All right, George, if you want to go to the first slide. So as we said today, we're going to demystify what's going on. We're going to explain what's going on in detail so everyone understands it. We're going to identify the various tools we're using. We're going to introduce you to the collaborators because we don't do this alone. And we're going to talk about what's next and the future might hold relative to this research. So first of all, what's the Atlantic Shark Institute? I'm the executive director. We're a 501c3 based here in Rhode Island. We're a nonprofit. We're based in South Kingstown. We rely 100% on the generosity of donors and supporters. We're a public charity. We have no paid employees. No one's getting paid to do this work. We're all volunteers. We all work on behalf of the sharks in the Institute. So if it's something you decide you're interested in supporting, be happy to talk to you all about it, but be assured every dollar is important and every dollar is accounted for. Our goal, answer the most pressing questions about sharks in the Atlantic Ocean, particularly the Northwest Atlantic. We study and we work on 5 sharks. We'll talk about that in a minute. All of their populations are decreasing, unfortunately. We also assist and collaborate with research groups. We do a lot of work with Rhode Island DEM. We couldn't do all this work without their support, the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management, who have been partners with us since the beginning. And we're also founding members of the New England White Shark Research Consortium, which is 15 groups working collaboratively between Rhode Island and up to Canada. The 2 groups in Rhode Island are Rhode Island DEM and the Atlantic Shark Institute. So why is this work so important? And we're going to get to some interesting things, but it's important to understand. So there's still a ton of things we don't know about sharks. You know, if you went back 20 years ago, there were 300 and some odd species of sharks. Now there are over 500 species of shark. So in 20 years, we found 200 species of shark that we didn't know about. So we are not done. We are in the middle of this great knowledge game of sharks, white sharks, blue sharks, Mako sharks, et cetera. There's still lots to learn and lots to be done. We haven't seen a great white give birth. I mean, there's just so many things that we're still wondering about, and that's why this research is so important. Sharks are apex predators. They keep our oceans healthy, and without them, we could have a significant issue with our ecosystem. I'll give you 2 quick examples of that, all right? Because people always wonder, hey, tell us, why is a shark important? Well, I'll give you a couple of examples. Reef system, vibrant reef system, wonderful ecosystem, everything's going great. Someone comes in, they fish out all the sharks. Hey, guess what? There's no more sharks. They're not going to hammer all the fish. It's going to be a better ecosystem. Well, not so fast. Because of course, that second tier, right, in that pyramid, you got your apex predator at the top, you've got the sharks. Well, guess what? That second tier, those fish that can grow pretty large and are pretty aggressive themselves, instead of 5 or 10 on the reef, how many are there? There's 30, there's 50, there's 100 because there's no sharks. Well, guess what happens to everything beneath that in this food chain? It gets hammered right down to the things that clean, right, the reef, keep it vibrant, keep other things from feeding on other components of the reef. You go back to that reef system in a couple of years, it does not look good. And they say, well, what happened? What happened? Well, they came in, they fished out all the sharks, and we thought that was a good thing. Not a good thing. Not a good thing. We've seen examples where a storm will come in, it'll devastate an area, rip up all the seagrass, and everything is bare. When sharks are present, that grass comes back much more quickly. You know why? Because the grazers, right, we'll call them the grazers, that come in and every single time a little shoot of that seaweed comes to return, those grazers go over and they nibble it right down. When there's no sharks around, they don't have to worry about it. They don't have to look over their shoulder, right, and wonder if they're going to get eaten. So they just eat everything that as soon as it pops up. Well, not good, because that seagrass is where a lot of things live, a lot of things hide. It's great for the ecosystem. It's great for a healthy ecosystem. When sharks are present, though, you got these grazers looking over their shoulder. They don't spend as much time doing it. You come back, two ecosystems, both devastated. Guess what? One looks really vibrant because it has sharks. One not so vibrant because there's too many grazers and they're demolishing every single thing that tries to return. Example after example after example. Sharks are not the enemy. Truly, they're not. They're critical to our ecosystem, and it's critical that they're around. No one, we all understand, no one wants to be bitten by a shark, me included, but it happens very, very, very infrequently, and we'll talk a little bit about that. You can see here, estimated more than 100 million sharks a year are taken, many for their fins, and about 5 people die a year worldwide from shark attacks. Again, we don't want to be one of those people, but this is not a fair fight. And it's important that we don't demonize sharks as we did in the 70s and the 80s and the shark tournaments and everything. It's very important that we do not take that posture. They're good. Next slide would be great. So here's the species that we study at the Atlantic Shark Institute, and we're going to get into detail on the great white, but just going to go through the shark. So Mako shark, you can see this categorization down below. If you can't in the back, I'll just describe it. Least concern is down on this end. Extinct is on this end. Here's endangered, vulnerable, critically endangered. So here's where all these sharks play. We're working with the Mako, the great white, the blue shark, the common thresher, and the poor beagle. Every one of these, their population is decreasing worldwide. Every one of them. So while we're seeing white sharks here, understand that there are parts of the world where they are critically endangered. So we just have to be careful, because if we look at a population and we think, hey, we might be growing, we might be out of the woods, we're not. Very important to remember. So here's your Mako shark, endangered worldwide, significantly below target population levels according to NOAA. They're discussing right now what to do about it. Will they make it endangered here in the United States? These sharks go everywhere. We tag all the time. We tag sharks in Block Island Sound, all around it. We catch them, and all the time the tags are coming from Venezuela. They're coming from all over. So these sharks don't stay here. So it's not just what we're doing, right? It's what other countries are doing and what their policies are. So again, important to think about. Great white, vulnerable worldwide. You can see their next step is endangered worldwide, and they're critically endangered in Europe and the Mediterranean. Blue sharks, near threatened worldwide, critically endangered in the Mediterranean. Blue shark, the most popular shark in the world. You look at them, people catch more blue sharks than anything. They're the most caught shark in the world. Their fins are really long, unfortunately for them. Shark fin soup. So that's a shark we watch closely, and I'll talk a little bit about. I looked for over 2 months this summer to find a single female blue shark. Over 2 months. We've caught dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens. We finally found 2. They were near Martha's Vineyard. We tagged both of them with spot tags on the fin. I'll talk about a spot tag in a little bit. And we're tracking both, and one went off the continental shelf and one is south of Long Island. The percentages of those blue sharks here in my lifetime, I've caught 13% of the sharks I've caught have been blue sharks. We were up to 50 blue sharks. We hadn't caught one yet. So things are always changing. We're always asking why. What's next? What are we doing? Great, really interesting field to be in. Common thresher shark, you can see that, vulnerable worldwide, endangered in Europe and the Mediterranean. Poor beagle shark. Poor beagle shark, gorgeous shark, and I'll tell you about it more in a little bit. Again, vulnerable worldwide, critically endangered in Europe and the Mediterranean. All these sharks spend time in Rhode Island. They're all gorgeous. They're all important to the ecosystem, and every one of them, the population is declining. And we hope with this research and with better advocacy that people will understand that these are more important than hanging on the dock or getting a picture with. So our friend, the great white shark, this is a picture I took in Guadalupe Island, Mexico, cage diving, magnificent trip. Great to see them swimming around in their natural environment. You take pictures and that's all. So as I described earlier, they can grow to 21 feet length, 4,000 pounds. They can live to 70 years old. Again, this is one of those things you go back not too long ago, we thought they lived to 30, and then 40, and then 50. Well, now we're up to 70. Greenland shark, it was reported recently, the Greenland shark, and everybody saw that, can live to 450, they think. Crazy, the things we learn every day. Males reach, now here's what's a little scary, and this is where you're going to understand the math problem with sharks. Look at the females when they reach sexual maturity, these great whites. 30 years old. 30 years old. So 2 days ago, I caught a 4-foot 1-inch great white. Today, our research partners caught a 3-foot 6-inch great white. We think it's the smallest great white ever caught. We tagged both. Both were females. 30 years from now, they can reproduce themselves. Let that sink in for a little bit. I don't know where I'm going to be in 30 years, but those sharks cannot, they will not reach sexual maturity for 30 years. That's our math problem. That's our math problem with these sharks. They typically have between 2 and 10 pups. They have an 18-month gestation period, and we have them in Rhode Island. And we've detected now 20, as I said. We can go to the next slide. Here's our Mako shark. This is the logo of the Atlantic Shark Institute. I absolutely love this shark. It's like the Ferrari of the ocean. It's absolutely gorgeous. You can see it. Look at it. It's got this pointed snout. Absolutely beautiful. The thing I love about this shark, can do 55 miles an hour underwater. Dealing with all that resistance. 55 miles an hour underwater. Fantastic. Can live to 30. Look at this problem. Females become sexually mature at 20 years old. Do you know how many people are fishing for Mako sharks even as I speak right now? Do you know how many hooks they have to avoid to get to 20 years old? It's crazy, crazy. And look at the next, look at that. They have to reach, so a 20-year-old female who has, by the way, at 20 years old and 610 pounds, has a 50% chance of being sexually mature. 50%. How many people here have seen and it's fine because we go to shark tournaments. How many people here have seen in real life a Mako shark that weighed over 600 pounds? Show of hands. 1, 2. What do we have here? 150 people? How many people have seen a Mako shark in real world, real time, less than 610 pounds? You know? 15 times that. So just think about that for a minute. Anything under 610, if it was a female, did not reproduce itself. Didn't replace itself. 4 to 25 punts every 2 years, but again, they're only 2 feet long. So think about that. That's a small, that's why these sharks love to give birth in places that are safe. They can't give birth in the middle of the ocean. We'll talk a little bit about that in a second. We can go to the next slide, it'd be great. Here's the blue shark, beautiful picture. Ryan Walsh took this. We can go to the next slide. So here you go. They're 12.5 feet, 500 pounds. They can live to about 20. You can see now, look at the ages where they sexually mature. That's why you look at this number. This is near threatened, right? If you went back to the previous slides. So you can see, and look at this number of pups, 4 to 125. They do give birth to 25 to 50 on average. So you can see a lot of this becomes a math issue, right? Which is why you look, now you have a shark that matures sexually much younger and has many more young. Still critically endangered though in the Mediterranean because we've taken so many of them. This guy's been causing a lot of trouble in Rhode Island this summer. Here's the common thresher shark. So they've been all along the beaches and everyone's been really worked up about them. And I understand it because they're big, they have sharp teeth, they can be intimidating, they're gorgeous. As you can see, the tail is the same length as the rest of the body. So when someone says it's a 20-foot thresher shark, it's really about 10 feet, but that's a really big one. They tell you it's a 10-footer, it's really 5 and 5. The good news about this shark is there have been about 900 shark attacks listed in the International Shark Attack File, 900 and something. Not one has been a thresher shark. And a lot of times people are concerned about misidentification, right? Was it a bull shark? Was it a dusky shark? A lot of sharks look alike. Nothing looks like this. So it's not a case of, oh, they've probably attacked 50 people and we don't know about it. No, this is a recognizable shark. Unfortunately, at the same time, I was on a boat 2 weeks ago in Narragansett because one wouldn't leave the beach all day and was going up and down. And what they do is they use that really long tail. They get fish into a school, typically bunker, menhaden, mackerel, things like that. Then they'll take that tail and they'll whip it through the school. They'll stun fish and they'll swim around and pick them up. Great way to fish. And that's why if you see a common thresher shark, you look at the jaw. If somebody says, hey, I got a 10-foot whatever, the jaw is this big. I got a 10-foot, thresher, the jaw is this big. Small jaw, small fish, use the tail as a weapon. Great design. So they can live to 20. Look at them. Now we're going back in the other direction, right? Females at 8 to 14 years versus the blue shark. So again, now we have an elongation of when they mature sexually. And we've got very few pups again. So this shark's got some issues in several places worldwide. And this is where we have to be careful, right? Because every summer, big numbers of threshers come into Block Island Sound between here and Montauk. You're allowed to take one a day. The problem is to think globally if you can. They taste delicious. They're a great fight. They leap periodically, and when they're there, you can't get away from them. We're trying to catch great whites right now. We've caught 7 so far. I'll talk about that. And we go when we try to pick up bait. You try to pick up bait. You can't even get the bait to the boat. These things are hitting the bait. So when they're there, they're there. They're heavy. But again, like the other ones, yeah, we as you saw earlier with the designation, yeah, we've got some issues and their population is decreasing as well. Poor Beagle shark, one of my favorite because people don't know that much about this shark. This is a cross between, it looks like a cross between a Mako and a great white. Part of the mackerel shark family, can regulate its body temperature, very cool. So it can increase its body temperature. When it does, it can hunt better, it can think better, it can move faster, and it has to because this shark loves cold water. And that's why we don't hear a ton about it because when we're here, we're all fishing in May, June, July, August, September, October. They'd rather be up in Massachusetts and Maine. We're doing a study for Nat Geo. We're doing a show for Nat Geo in September. We're going to Maine. We're going back to finish up the show. We're going in late October to get the females that are pregnant. So you can see the water temperature. You can get them in higher than 55, but they love that. Look at the age on these, 45. Females at 13. This is a great tasting fish. This is endangered everywhere but the United States. They're on the cusp of being designated endangered here. So we're doing a lot of work with this shark. We actually, this past year, kind of a quick anecdote. So we went off and for the first time, we put tags in the uteruses of this shark. So we caught several of these sharks in Massachusetts, Maine, Massachusetts, in late October. It was on Shark Week this year. We put tags in the uteruses of these sharks. We also put spot tags on them so we could follow them. Really cool. We had 2 of them. They were together. They disappeared together. They popped up in the same spot like 300 miles away. And then recently, we had both those sharks go right into the shallows in Cape Cod Bay. Very shallow water, spend a little bit of time and leave, and we think they may have pupped there. A lot of these sharks are very smart. They don't give birth in the open ocean. They give birth where they know that their young will be safe. Very clever, very smart. So we're going to talk a little bit about tagging technology and what we're doing here on Block Island and how we're finding these sharks and why you're learning so much about them. So greatest advance in technology has been for a while. So if we could go to the camera just for this. I don't know if these guys can see outside, but or I can just hold it out there. So this has been the tag forever. Okay, this is just a little, it's called an M tag. And all this is a little plastic bead at the top, and it's got a number on it, like a social security number. Okay, that's all this is. Just a little plastic tag. This has got a little number in it. There's no technology in this at all. Okay. This has a corresponding number in it to a card that you get. And the card that you get has this number on it. So let's say we all went fishing tomorrow, right? and we all catch a blue shark and it's 6 feet long and it's a female and it looks good, and we catch it in a certain spot. So we fill out a card, we say 6-foot female, we caught it at this spot, it was in great shape. We take this tag, we use a pole, we insert it into the shark and just under the skin, and this tag stays with the shark until someone takes it out of the shark, cuts it out. So we now know that on the 11th of August, we did that. Here's the issue. Unfortunately, because of a lot of commercial long lining operations, and these sharks go all over the world, we only get 4% of these back. So you spend the time to go out and to chum and to fish and to tag, and 96 of these don't come back. But when they do come back, we all tagged this shark. It was 6 feet long. 4, 5, 6 years from now, someone catches this shark, says, hey, it's a 10-foot blue shark, and I caught it in Venezuela. And it was scarred up because she had been mated, and they cut this tag off and put another one in. So this is what the technology was forever. The problem with this is, our same example, if this shark came back, right, to the exact spot we caught it in this year, and someone caught it, and they'd say, hey, guess what? The shark never left that spot. When, of course, we all know that's not true. So that's the only problem with these tags. However, invaluable, hundreds of thousands have been placed, and this is the backbone of shark research in this country and has been for a long time. So let me tell you what happens then and how things basically change. So you go from that, and here's our friend that's been getting so much attention here in Rhode Island and around Block Island. This is an acoustic tag, okay? Same thing in terms of there's a tether that comes off of this, and basically we do the same thing. We insert this into the dorsal, just by the dorsal fin of the shark. Little magnet on here, we pull it off. As soon as we pull it off, this goes on, okay? Here's your acoustic tag. You can see this tag costs a little over $400, but this will actually last for 10 years. And every time this tag goes within 1,000 yards of an acoustic receiver, we have 9 around Block Island, it will register and we will know that shark number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 passed the southwest ledge on July 3rd at 12:10 a.m. And we'll know that for 10 years. This is the backbone of everything you've been hearing about around Block Island. Because until these receivers were installed in 2019, these fish swam through here and we never knew it. And now we know all about them because of this device. $400 and something a piece. The only issue with these, obviously, think about it for a minute, is if this shark gets tagged and decides it's going to swim into the middle of the Atlantic and never go within 1,000 yards of a receiver, we'll never know about this shark again. But that's okay, because we know where all the receivers are. So there's always things to learn, whether you feel it's successful or not. So then we'll say, well, we know where this shark wasn't. We know where it was, but we don't know, the rest of it. So then we say, well, wait a second, let's come up with a little different technology. So this little device is about $2,000. This is called the spot tag. Okay, this is a spot tag. This little device, and this is what we attach to the dorsal fin of a shark. They're about $2,000 each. Okay, so this device does something really cool and very simple. Every time the shark breaks the surface of the water for about 3 seconds, we know exactly where it is because this goes up to the Argos satellite system, comes back down and gives us an exact reading. Really cool technology. So you can imagine if you put this on a shark plus that acoustic one, we know every time it goes past an acoustic receiver, every time they break the surface of the water. You can get about 5 years with this technology, depending upon how you want to program it. This is what we put on those 2 female blue sharks that we chased all over to try to find, which is what we're using to track them. And every time they break the surface, we say, there they are. $2,000 a piece. Right now, this is the granddad of research. This is a pop-up satellite tag. This is about $4,000 each. But what's really neat about this tag is we do not need an acoustic receiver, and we do not need this shark to break the surface. Because what this tag is doing, you can see the size of it. What this tag does is we can program it to record all sorts of interesting things, like the water temperature the shark is in, the depth the shark is at, and using light levels exactly where it was for an entire year or more. So we basically take this tag, put it in the shark, swims off at a predetermined time. We have a corroding element to this. It pops, it floats to the surface, it hits the surface, immediately starts transmitting data, and it downloads everything we want to know. Here's the only caveat to this. Because there's so much data and there's so much that has to transmit, we'll get readings that are, let's say it's an hour per reading, but if we can record, if we can actually get the device, we can go down to very small increments between readings, half a minute, a minute. So it can just transmit so much data, but extremely valuable. So we tagged a great white shark in March. One of these just popped in the Bay of Fundy. We're trying to get this back. But we do know now we now can see where it went, the depth it was at, the water temperature it was at, and exactly where it went. So these are $4,000 each. So it gives you a sense of, when you look at these now, of course, we think about a shark, right? And we say, hey, we tagged we'll make it up. We tagged a 6-foot blue shark. It was a female. Look what she did. And someone said, that's great. What did an 8-foot female do? A little more mature. What did a 4-foot female do? What did a 10-foot or a 12-foot female do? By the way, what did a 6-foot male do? And by the way, you're not writing a paper on 3 of these, 3 6-foot males, because that's not a paper. That's not enough of a sample size. So you can start to get the sense of the size and complexity of some of this research to really determine what's going on with a lot of these species, because you can't do this 10 times and say we have the answer. But if you want to do this 10 times, that's 40 grand, but that's just one size, one species, one sex. That's why all these components are important, and that's why this research is both critical and expensive. And it's why we need collaborators. So if we want to go to the next slide. So there they are on the board, which is same thing we just discussed. So here's our acoustic receivers. Who's seen these around Block Island? Anybody? Yeah, good. That's a lot of hands. All right, so let me tell you what they're doing. All they're doing, because we've had this question, there's no bait attached to them, right? There's no bait attached to these. They are, that's a sponge buoy that goes right to the bottom with a cable. The cable goes to chain, and the chain goes to a 200-pound anchor. All of that structure is designed for one thing, this. This is the acoustic receiver. All of that is to hold this. This is the brain of the operation. $2,300 each. They listen 24/7. And they're listening for these, the acoustic tag. Acoustic tag, acoustic receiver. Shark swims within 500 yards, definitely picking it up. 1,000, it gets a little iffy. They're listening right now. We could have had a detection as we're talking. You can see it kind of looks like a thermos. It's got some weight to it, pretty heavy. So our receiver, our tag. That's what these are. So we have 9 of them around Block Island. And that's when you're hearing about, hey, the Atlantic Shark Institute detected a white shark. Oh, they detected 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. We're detecting these tags with these devices. So you can see one of the things that was odd was that Rhode Island has such a rich history of fishing, research, et cetera, but we were one of the last states to develop and to deploy this acoustic technology. So in 2018, there had never been an acoustic receiver placed in the state of Rhode Island. 2019, that all changed. We partnered with the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management. We deployed 3, they deployed some, and we've been growing it since, and now we're up to 28. Every time we deploy a receiver, we're shortening, and we're starting to get a better sense of what all things do. And by the way, striped bass are tagged with these. Anything can be tagged with these. They're just different sizes, of course. So we're learning an awful lot about things that we didn't know that much about before. We deploy them in May. and we retrieve them in November. Part of that is just weather, but also from a shark perspective, May is when we start seeing white sharks. November, we still have stuff, but it gets so damn stormy, we don't want to risk losing these receivers because they're $3,500 a piece. So I've got $35,000 worth of gear around Block Island, and we just can't risk a storm taking it all. Be devastating to us. So we go out with a computer to retrieve the data each month, and then we upload it. So if you want to go to the next photo, George. So this is just an example. That's one of my daughters. So you literally have to go out, because the problem with these receivers is that you have to Bluetooth data off of them. They don't transmit data underwater. So you have to go out to the receiver. You have to take it. You have to tilt it. You got to tie it. You pull it up. When you do, you put a magnet in this. The magnet turns it on, and then it transmits all that data into a laptop. That's what we're doing. So we'll go out once a month and we'll pull all the data. And then we'll compare it to what we have. So we haven't announced it yet, but I'll tell you here, we just picked up 4 more great whites from the last month. We had 4, so we're up to 8 different individuals so far detected. This is called a passive receiver. There is an active receiver. An active receiver tells you instantly. This device is $2,300. An active receiver is about $15,000. We don't need to know active receivership here. However, Cape Cod does. Cape Cod's got a ton of white sharks, so they now have 6 of the active receivers deployed. Those receivers are hooked up to those tags. It instantly tells the lifeguard, we've got a white shark in the water. They blow the whistle and they get everybody out. That's what that technology is all about. Greg Scomo leads that technology up in Massachusetts. He's got 100 receivers up there, 100 acoustic receivers that are passive, that are these. His detail, he's got so much fine scale movement. It's unbelievable. You know what all those white sharks are doing. 6 of them are active, and they're testing them to make sure that they can try to keep people safe. Here's the problem. What percentage of white sharks do you think have been tagged? Therein lies the problem. So while it's valuable, right, that you tell people there is a white shark here that has an acoustic tag in it, the only issue is that it's highly likely that 90–95% we're going to know soon have never been tagged. These tags also have a shelf life, right? They have 10 years, but they can fall off, they can rub off, they can malfunction. So what you have to ask yourself is, if we've detected 8 white sharks so far at Block Island this summer, how many white sharks really came through Block Island? So we know it's not 8. We just don't know if it's 80. You know, we don't know if it's 40. We don't know what it is. But the good news is it's been happening for a long, long time. And we've all been fine. But it's been happening a long, long time. We're just now getting a better sense of how to track them and to know that they're here. So what have we detected? This is, by the way, this is a 2,800-pound great white that we caught in South Carolina. We fight all these sharks on rod and reel because we're in places that we don't want people to know we're at. So instead of using a big polyball and having a polyball race across the surface and everybody say, holy cow, what is that? And then they figure out where we are. We fight these things on rod and reel, and it's brutal because our goal is to get them in as quickly as we can, keep them running, keep the boat running, get them tagged, get a tissue sample. If we can, get a blood sample, get a spot tag on them, get an acoustic tag on them, maybe put on a pop-up satellite tag and get them on their way. It's brutal. If you saw Shark Week this summer, you may have seen me lying on the deck after fighting one of these with Snoop Dogg making fun of me. So, and my daughters will not let me live it down. And what he said was typical John, you know, lying down on the job, and he had some jokes, and now I'm typical John at home, you know. But they're brutal. And the other thing is you really need to be respectful of these animals. So you don't want to fight this thing for 4 hours or 2 hours. So you want to get it as quickly as you can because you don't want it to exhaust itself, but also it puts tremendous pressure on you trying to fight something this large. So here's what our array looks like today. All right. So there they are. So if you haven't circumnavigated Block Island, you don't have to. Now you know where all our receivers are. All right, and we're going to go back and we're going to take a step back, but that's where they are, and I'll tell you why they're there in a minute. So if we could, George, we'll go to the next slide. Here's where it all started. So here we are in 2019. All right, and we get one detection by the Southwest Ledge. That's the Southwest Ledge down in the corner on the left there. And we got one by the wind farm. So we got one on each of those receivers. And I'll tell you what those sharks were. What's neat about this is because we work with Greg Scommel. Greg and I went to URI together. We both were in biology. We were both in fisheries. So he and I have been friends for a long time. One of the things about this data is that it's difficult to share with everybody because unfortunately, researchers will steal data and write papers about all the work you've done. So you can imagine if you gave everybody, oh, here's all our shark tags and here's all the detections, then people will say, hey, I see a paper here. So it gets a little dicey because I get access to data from Greg, and it allows me to identify what we have coming through here. So if you look over way on the left there, that's the Southwest Ledge. And in this case, that was a 12-foot female great white. She came through on July 25th. Never saw her again. She was around that for a little bit, 5 pings. So she was around the Southwest Ledge for about 10, 15 minutes and left. Wasn't there, wasn't enough to keep her interested. This one on the right, here's our Block Island wind farm. That's an 11-foot male. He came through about 1:20 in the afternoon, spent about 5 minutes and said, enough of this. Both of these sharks, where were they detected next? Cape Cod. We have a winner. You know why? Because there's 50,000 seals in Cape Cod. They know it's a great food source, and there's not enough food here at Block Island for them to stick around. And they know if they can grab a seal, when you think about the nutritional value, the caloric intake, they don't want to be here chasing around trying to find one of 50 or 100 seals when they know there's 50,000 at the Cape, and they can run the beaches all day long. Those seals have two options. They can sit on the beach and get real skinny, or they can get in the water to try to get something to eat, and the great white sharks know it. Which is why they've got they got a significant population there and a significant issue relative to taking a swim. I had one of my daughters go there last month, and I said, don't go over your waist. But that's me. Take a swim if you'd like. Next slide. So here's what we did. So now you see what we've done. We took it and we decided, all right, we're going to add. So we had one down here in Southwest Ledge and one at the wind farm. Now we've got 3 at the wind farm. This is 2020. We put one on the west side and we put one on the east side. So look at the west side here. Interesting. So we put one there and we picked up 3 detections. So one of those was from OSearch. OSearch is a research group that you may have heard of. OSearch, we don't have the data. They have not supplied us with the data. We just know it's a white shark. We do not know the sex or the size, but we know there's a great white shark there, and that shark was there on the 2nd of June. Okay. And then on June 19th, Miss Carolina came cruising through the west side. She's 8 feet, 2 inches long. She's a female. What's really cool about Miss Carolina is that I tagged Miss Carolina off of Hilton Head. So it's pretty cool that I had the shark, one of the sharks that I tagged with Captain Chip Michaeloff actually come up through my array. So I immediately had to call Chip and go, guess who was just here? Miss Carolina, which means absolutely nothing to anybody but Chip and I. Miss Carolina. And then on July 21st, over there on the west side, we had Kibble come through. Kibble's 8.5 feet. She's a female. Now, what's interesting is that those first 2 sharks that hit there, we never saw them again. So we don't know where they went relative to, did they go north around the island? Did they go south around the island? So, it's one of those things. However, we did have one of them, Miss Carolina, that I already mentioned. She ended up at Block Island Wind Farm. See the number 4 there that's got coloration? We had 4 sharks that we picked up in other locations come by there. So these sharks, the 3 on the west side and the one at Southwest Ledge, every one of them, those sharks, and this other one at the southeast corner down here, every one of those sharks that we detected a second time, we had 4 of them, and every one of them went right by that first wind turbine. The other thing that's interesting in this slide is that we added this receiver down in the southeast corner. So you remember the first one, we wouldn't have picked those up either. And on that southeast corner, we picked up a 9.5-foot female. We picked up an O-search tag. We don't know what that was, but we know that it was a white shark. And we picked up Fangirl, who was 8.5 feet long. Good news, nothing on the east side. A lot of bathing going on over there. Let's go to the next slide. We also picked up a shark way down in here. Here is Point Judith. So right by the center wall in Point Judith. So if you took the ferry to get here, you went right by the center wall, and we picked up a shark there. That was Ocean Maya, and she was 8.5, 9 feet long. But what was interesting is we also picked her up 2 other times coming along the south shore of Rhode Island. So she looks like she came in from Watch Hill, cruised along the south shore through Charlestown, Matunic, picked her up here. So we had 3 detections, and then she left, and she ended up in Maine. So she came through late, August 24th, but still got up to Maine. Interesting. Next slide, George. All right, so here's what we have now. So you can see we've added a receiver up here in the north. So far, no detections, white sharks. We still have a receiver on the east side, still no detections. We picked up 2 on the west again, active. This is a new receiver down here in the southwest corner. We picked 1 up, 2 at the southwest ledge. We had 1 over here in the southeast and 2 detections of sharks that came around. And you can see what's going on. We also reconfigured our configuration out by the wind farm. You can see instead of having all 3 on one side, we moved 1 to the other side. We were a little concerned about interference from the structure beneath the water and the ability for them to pick up all of the receivers. Yeah, the cruising depth can be thousands of feet, but typically you're going to find these white sharks on the bottom. Yep. So far, what we're seeing is that these sharks don't like Block Island. What we're seeing is that they're migrating up when the water temperatures make it, efficient for them to do so. They're running into Block Island, and they're not even going around this island. Right now, they're all going south, and we're picking up all of these sharks in Massachusetts, Maine, and Canada. So there's nothing keeping them here. If you are a shark lover, you may say, oh, that's unfortunate because it'd be cool if we had some, but these are mature. The other issue we're dealing with, these sharks are mature sharks, subadults and adults, and they're not chasing typically striped bass and these things. They want to get up there for the seal population. So the good news is we don't have any residency right now. Now, of course, if the seal population doubles or triples or quadruples, or suddenly there might be some sustainability. That's different. But right now, this is what we've got. We'll check these receivers 2 more times, and we'll be updating everybody as to what we found. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so the question is, you see people going out in a wetsuit at night, they're going to do a little fishing, they might go out to a rock formation, right, to fish off of or whatever. Yeah, they do a lot of that in Montauk. Listen, sharks are more active at night, dawn, dusk, and at nighttime. They are more active at that time. If you look at these, you can look at them and you can say, okay, here we are. So far this year, we've detected 1 white shark in the southeast corner, 1 shark in the southwest corner, but then there's 2 others that came through another. So we've had 4 sharks come through the southern edge of Block Island from May 10th till August 1st. So I think it's an odds game, right? I wouldn't do it just because I study sharks too much. And I love to fish, but there is risk because these sharks, they don't want to eat human beings. They don't. It's a mistake. That's why you see these attacks where someone bites somebody. Very often those people get to shore because that shark bites and says, what was that? That looked like a seal. I thought it was a seal. It acted like a seal. And when I bit it, I figured out immediately it wasn't a seal. So I really think it's an odds game. I would not do it. You know what they say? When you look at the shark attack file, you want to be safe. Don't swim at dawn. Don't swim at dusk. Don't swim at night. Don't wear shiny jewelry. Swim in a group. If you see fish, get out of the water. You see seals, get out of the water. You know, a lot of logical kind of things. And that's not anecdotal. That's they go through 900 attacks and say, what was everybody doing? So personally, I would not do it as much as I love to fish. But what the risk is, they've been doing it here for decades. Guys love doing it. There's never been an attack. So I think the odds are likely in your favor. You could go have a great fishing experience. Eventually, you know, the numbers will tell you eventually something could happen. But again, it depends what the depths are too. These are large sharks. So typically you don't find them in 2-3 feet of water where guys might get through to get to a rock. But I'll tell you, I've been in Cape Cod doing a lot of that research, and those sharks are in 5 feet of water, 12-foot sharks. You got a plane, they tell you go up and it's swimming. And I've had people that are 30 feet away saying, what are you doing? Standing waist deep. So, yes. Yep. Great question. So the question is, I'm giving lengths on these sharks, and therefore how accurate are those lengths? Because if they were tagged a long, long time ago, these sharks might be all, you know, they could be larger. So the answer is they're pretty accurate, but they could be larger. But I'll give you the tag just dates for the last couple of years: 2018, 17, 17, 19, 16, 15, 15, 19, 19. So in 19 again, a lot of them are recent, 20, 19, 21. So fairly recent when you think about how these sharks grow. But that's a great question because, you know, it's really valuable if we can catch these sharks a second time and see how they've changed. Okay, next slide. So here's the other thing that happened this year for the first time in Rhode Island history. Here's June. We picked up a white shark inside the harbor up in Point Judith. You may have heard about that. And then we picked him up July just outside the west wall. Want to go to the next slide, George? And here's a picture of our friend from June. So she was a 7-foot female caught in a fish trap. Luckily, she was fine. I had trained these guys on how to tag and what to do. So Ian Campbell and his crew tagged this white shark. Really cool. First time ever in Rhode Island. What's really also neat about this is our friend, and she actually came right out here and she tripped one of the receivers out here at Block Island. So she was in Point Judith in June. And then on July 14th, she tripped the receiver here at the Southwest Ledge. We only tripped it once. She swam through and she went somewhere else. Very cool though. Very interesting. And if you go to the next slide, here's our one that was tagged in July. So really, really neat. And these are the kind of things you want to do because we need to partner with a lot of folks. You know, you can go out a long time and try to find a white shark. And, you know, you can talk to people that have fished their whole lives and never seen one, caught one, tagged one, engaged one. So these are really important opportunities for us to tag these smaller juvenile and young of the year is newborn, young of the year and juvenile white sharks. Very important for us to get tags and to be able to take tissue samples and study these because Greg Scomel's doing a phenomenal job up in Cape Cod. He's tagged over 200, but because they are feeding on seals, they're typically subadults and adults. So suddenly you get a 5.5 footer, you get a 7 footer, a 4 footer. These are really important sharks because very, very few have ever been tagged. So tough to see in the back, maybe outside, but here's our legend now. So you can see Block Island. Here's our 9 receivers clustered around it. We have a receiver here, and this is Fisher's Island, New York, right on the eastern tip. We have one at Watch Hill. We have one at the Point Judith, and we have one at Scarborough Beach. We have not checked the ones at Point Judith or Scarborough Beach yet. We're going to do it next week. We're going out with a PBS crew. They want to film it. We're going to pull those, and everything you see light colored, you can see how the Rhode Island DM has just covered the bay, Narragansett Bay, and a couple along the south coast. So here's our 28 acoustic receivers. Here's where it's also valuable. So these striped bass have these tags in them, right? So suddenly we get a call from the guys that are doing all this research down in Chesapeake Bay. And they are elated. You know why? Because they gated the bay so they could account for every bass that left. Well, guess what? Bass escaped it. they didn't detect them. They thought they had died. So when they're trying to do their research, they say, hey, a certain number of sharks live, striped bass. Well, suddenly we reported we're getting a bunch of detections. They're elated because there'd never been a shark, there'd never been an array up here, an acoustic array. So this research becomes valuable for a whole host of people that are trying to figure out what's going on regionally with all sorts of fish species. So here's one more example for you. So white shark study, so young of the year and juvenile white sharks, they're hard to find and very few have been tagged, as I said. So each one is disproportionately. We just tagged today, I just had to update this slide to 7. We tagged a 3-foot 6-inch great white today. I think it's the smallest ever tagged. Put an acoustic tag on her, female, and we'll know what she does for 10 years. Yesterday or 2 days ago, because I'm losing track of time, 2 days ago, I tagged a 4-foot 1-inch female white shark. 2 days before that, we tagged a 4-foot 4-inch female white shark. Got a 5-foot 3-inch one last week. Super important and really, really amazing for us. There's a pupping ground and a nursery between Block Island and Montauk Point. And I can't get any more specific than that, unfortunately, just because there are so many fishermen and so many people. These are a protected species. They are vulnerable, but there is a really neat thing happening, and we've known about it for a long time, but to catch this many this year has been truly phenomenal. So this is going to be a huge benefit to the research and what's going on with these white sharks, because now we can watch these young of the year and these small juveniles for the next decade. Really, really cool. So you can see we tagged 1 last year. We're up to 7 this year, and we're not done. So trying to go to the next slide. So here's our, now what's funny is I put this together yesterday and said, here's our newest research partner, but it's not even our newest research partner anymore. So she's now 1 behind or 2 behind. What's really cool is look at the teeth on this little shark. That's a 4-foot 1-inch great white, probably 3 months old. Already, doing what white sharks do. They get pupped, the mother goes one way, the babies go the other way. And this shark is out hammering live bait, months old. It's amazing. Really smart. Again, the mothers don't decide, oh, I'll give birth to you 200 miles offshore. This shark would not survive. 200 miles offshore, too small. It would get eaten by a whole bunch of larger predators. But where we're catching them, they're relatively safe until they can grow. So we want to find out, when does this shark start acting like a bigger shark, and where does it go when it gets to that age, to that size? Cape Cod. Next slide, please. All right, so so the next question becomes, gee, this is all cool technology. You got all these tags. You can see it, but what do you do with a shark that isn't tagged? How do we figure out what's going on with that? So, Keegan, if you want to give me a hand, I'm going to give you a quick demonstration, or you can actually see what we're doing as we go to the next step. Okay. So first of all, I want to thank Jules Cranock. Where's Jules? Jules is right here. Jules has been critical for us on Block Island. He's been a super advocate for us in this research, and particularly with this, the BRUVS. It's an acronym for Baited Remote Underwater Video System. Again, and we're gonna put it on the screen so you guys can see it outside. A Baited Remote Underwater Video System, BRUVS. I also want to thank Kate McConville. Is Kate here? Oh, there's Kate in the back. She's your harbor master at Block Island. She's been very, very supportive of our work as well, and has been very accommodating for us getting to the island, getting this gear, getting off, doing the research, and getting back to the island. So really important for us. So this looks like a really, can you guys see this out there? Yeah, great. So really fancy contraption, but not that fancy. So basically what you have is you've got a buoy with a line. This goes to the surface, okay? We've got an arm that comes out. Jewel was kind enough to put his cat toy in here. That's a fake fish, but what we do is we fill this basket with a bunch of fish. We strap it to the top, and attached to this bruvs is a GoPro. And we get 1 hour and 5 minutes of high def video, whatever is attracted to that bait. And it can be anything, and it doesn't have to have a tag in it, and it doesn't have to be a shark. On our Instagram account, we'll put that up at the end. You can go. We got a really cool cow nose ray. It's gorgeous. It's coming at the camera. It's wide. It's absolutely beautiful. Coming at the camera here in Southwest Ledge about 2 weeks ago. Jules was on the boat for that. It's really neat stuff because you see things all the time you don't expect. You also get to see the topography, what's going on under the water. Southwest Ledge is gorgeous. It's so rich and diverse. I can't wait to look at the video because you never know what you're going to see. The wind farm, not so much. Much more barren, kind of flat, a bunch of rocks all the same size, not nearly as diverse. But that's okay. The structures there are attracting fish and some things. So this is an important study for us because what's going on and what are the things that aren't tagged? We're going to do this for years. So this is a really important component. If you have a boat and you're at Block Island, you say, geez, would I like to participate in this? We would love it if you had a boat that was 25 feet, 30 feet, 35 feet. We take 3 of these out. We stack them on top of each other. We unstack them. We put it in the water. We drop it. We go to the next one. We drop it. We go to the next one. We wait an hour. We pick the 3 of them up, and then we go over to the wind farm. We do the same thing, and we come in. Takes 4 or 5 hours. That video is invaluable. But we usually, so far, every boat that we've had do it has come from the mainland. So if you're interested in being a part of this research, we'd love you to say, hey, I've got a 32-foot, down east, and it sits around a lot, and I'd love to help you twice a summer. This isn't every week, because it would be easier for Jules and for our researchers not to have a boat come from Stonington, Connecticut to come out here to do this. There is a way you can participate. So there you go, shark species, high definition video, everything that we just discussed. Next slide. And here's, unfortunately, this was a video. It didn't come through, but this is just a visual. So you can see there's some mackerel in the cage, mackerel strap. That's a bunch of dogfish sharks. And this is actually the video that had the cow nose ray come right at it. So if you get a chance, you can go on to our Instagram and we'll show you what that is and you can take a look at it. Oh, look. Don't touch it. Here comes our ray in the upper left-hand corner. Check it out. That beautiful? Really cool. You never know what you're going to see. That's right here at the Southwest Ledge. So I called my friend Greg Skoll and some other folks. They're like, John, never seen it before here. A video like this. So in conclusion, so how can you help? Well, become a shark advocate, right? Support efforts to learn more about them and the environment would be really, really nice. We depend on financial support. So if you're a person or an organization, restaurant, a hotel, and you look and you say, hey, like we have the receivers out here, they're sponsored by different people. So we have individuals that sponsor a receiver for a season. It's $500. We get a detection. We say, we really want to thank so-and-so, Mike Flood at Flood Ford sponsored one. So, it's just different folks that'll sponsor them. And then we can say, hey, thank you so much. And it's $500 a year for those. And really we have anything. Someone has $5. We have school kids send us money, et cetera. It really doesn't matter. It's all put to good use. Like I said, we have no paid employees. It's a very simple in terms of the 501c3. It all goes into an account. We write checks out of that account or use a debit card. And it's all for the research. We're audited every year. Next bullet, as we said, we need boat owners willing to take, really important for us. We also have gear. My wife's in the back at the table. We've got Atlantic Shark Institute gear here, t-shirts, sweatshirts, some hats and some things. You can also go on the website That's helpful. Our margin there is really small because we're not a big operation, right? We're not buying these things in massive bulk, but it's good for us because you wear the brand, people ask you about what's going on, what's it about, and hopefully this gave you a better sense of what we're doing, why it's important, you know, why this is interesting and hopefully interesting to you, and why we hope to be doing this a long time. We're going to add more receivers next year. They're about $3,500 each, so we just can't go and jump above Tremaine. We have a couple more locations, but that'll probably do it for Block Island. And we're going to dig deeper and deeper into this puzzle of the white shark and what they're doing here.
Why is there such an abundance of seals in Cape Cod?
Excuse me?
Why is there such an abundance?
Yeah,
of
why are
seals?
there so many seals in Cape Cod? Well, they were decimated for years, for decades. And believe it or not, their life cycle and some of the things you see here are not that different in terms of how long it took them to come back. So literally it goes back to the moratorium in the 70s, and it's taken them this long. But there's also an abundance of food sources down there for them. So that the food is significant, which is allowing all of them to be sustained. It's a real battle because there's a lot of fishermen there that, of course, don't like these things. A lot of commercial fishermen because they eat a ton. And of course, they're federally protected, so no one's going to touch them. So there's a little bit of a battle going on down there. And clearly, they've attracted all these white sharks. So there's been literally, as you watch the rise in the population of these seals, you see the white sharks. And every year we seem to see, you know, the white sharks are coming in, they're beelining, and they're not staying anywhere else, but they're going up there. And they are going up into Maine. I'll be up in Maine in 3 weeks. We're doing some work in Maine, and then they're going up into Canada. But yeah, that's not going to change for quite a while. And I don't suspect we're going to see anything here. But again, I think it really is going to depend upon the seal population, and due to competitiveness, do they slide a little south and do they find more of them here? It could, but again, if you're a white shark, you don't want to sit around all day waiting for 20 seals to come off a beach. You know what I mean? And by the way, the seals are very quick. They're very fast. They know what they're doing. So it's not an easy catch on top of that. Any other questions? Yes. Yeah, so the question is, who funds the tags? The tags are just funded by, for instance, we just bought 5 more tags because we're running out of them. So basically, the funds come into the Atlantic Shark Institute, and we use those as smartly as we can. For example, we are a private, you know, we're a public charity, so we are restricted in some ways. So, you know, I love this work. So my wife and I wrote a check this year for $20,000. We put it into the Institute. The issue with being a public charity is we have to go off and get $20,000 and $1 because I can't be the biggest donor. So, so it's been good. We just got a mega donor. We clever mega shark, you know, the megalodon. So we got a mega donor at $5,000 in the last couple of weeks. We had another 5,000 donation come in to a research project we're doing not long ago. We've got a partner, you know, Mike Flood, $3,000. We've got all these different people. We've got several families. We just got a $500 donation for one of our receivers. We had 3 previously this summer at $500 each from Gilman Corporation, who does the buoys, and then a couple of her grandchildren, my brothers, other people that have donated. So it's really all about people seeing value in what we're doing. But to be frank, we haven't done a great job on that side. We've been so focused on the research. So I haven't been as worried about the funding as I have about getting good research done and kicking this off with earnest. Rhode Island EM has been a big partner because those tags that we put into those female blue sharks, those were supplied by Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management. We have 10 of those tags. And those are the spot tags that go on the dorsal fin. And so they supplied those that we're trying to deploy. So, but so far, so good. But yeah, like anything else, if somebody said, John, what do you need most of? We could use money and we could use boat owners. But this year has been phenomenal. We're getting a ton of work done. It's been better than you could possibly imagine. I've got people calling saying, I can't believe all the stuff you guys are doing. So it's been good. So we're very happy is the point. But next year is another year. And hopefully, if you like what you've heard, and you're interested, then we can always use people that'll support us really in any way. Thank you for that question. Yes.
You mentioned briefly that the information like that was coming from the acoustic tag was shared.
Yeah.
How much of it was shared? How far? Is it international? Is it national?
Great question. So the question is, I mentioned that there is data that is shared from those acoustic tags. How far is it shared? So here's a real bone in this marketplace that I've learned a lot about. So the tagger owns the data. So what happened was it was really open source. So let's say everybody who's here right now was a researcher and we were all tagging and we were all uploading all of our data to a centralized database. As I said earlier, what happened is some bad egg, we'll call it John, so we'll use me, basically uses all of the tags you've paid for and you've put in sharks and you've spent 10 years and you tagged 212 sharks and they're all nurse sharks and it's a big project. Well, you uploaded all of it. I could see everything that happened. And I then write a paper about nurse shark growth, movement, migration patterns, broad scale movements, fine scale movements. And you go bananas, justifiably so, because now you understand the cost of these tags and the time you put into it. So guess what happened? Whole system gets shut down. So now I go and I check a receiver and I get 65 different fish came through. I don't know what those 65 are. I have no idea. I'll know the tagger, Dr. So-and-so, the tagger. In my case, they know it's a shark because it's the Atlantic Shark Institute. So then I have to reach out to Bob Jones, Mary Smith to say, hi, we've got a number of tags. But as you can imagine, when you have 65, there aren't two taggers. There's 65, you might have 57 different people. It's a little bit of a pain in the neck, frankly, because people abuse the system and now we really have to dig to try to get the data. So that's why I mentioned these are so detailed because this is Greg Scommel, Mass Fisheries, who and I, we've been friends for decades, you know, and then OSearch has been kind enough to tell me they're white sharks and I'm hopeful in discussions with them, they'll tell me it was a male or a female or a juvenile or a subadult or adult, because those are valuable components to what we're doing. Thank you for that question, though. It's an important clarification. Yes. Hi.
That fish, that shark that was in Ian Campbell's net,
Yes.
how far did it get into the net? And then when it was in there, what did he have to do? Call you? And how did he handle it till you came on the scene?
Yeah, great. So the question is, Ian Campbell, one of those two juvenile white sharks that he got in his fish trap, how did he handle it? How far did they get into the trap? Got all the way into the trap. So what's good about a fish trap in many respects is they go in there and there's a large enough pool where they can swim, stay alive until the fish trap fisherman pulls it up, and they don't want to kill everything because they trap fish for a living. So they want to get in there. They want to get the fish out that have value, and those that don't, they want them to swim free. So in the case of these, both of these white sharks, they went there and they don't know what's in the net and they start pulling it, right? And it gets smaller and smaller, and suddenly the net's teeming with activity, and son of a gun, it's a white shark. So I did not go and tag it because I had worked with Ian and his team, and we went over this many times about the tag, the tagging stick, sexing it, lengthening it, sizing it, determining its condition, et cetera. So in all of these things, numero uno is the fish condition. So if it doesn't look good, if it looks like it may have been in a situation where it's tired, it's exhausted, it looks like it, gone, get it out of the net, don't care. If it's got activity and it looks good, same thing because it's swimming around. The tagging is not even a second. It's a tag on a stick with a pole, boom, right behind the dorsal fin, and drop the net and away you go. Because measurement estimation, you can see them in that picture, they had to drop the net down to get it. So we have pictures and we know the exact length of that boat, which allowed us to say, hey, this is exactly this long.
So he already knew how to deal with it.
He knew how to deal with it. He called me and said, you're not going to believe what we're doing right now, both times. So it was really exciting.
My great grandfather had a net like that. And I know he used to get frustrated when he get giant tuna in there.
Oh, yeah.
They would tear up
They tear up the whole net. So they don't want sharks. These fish trap fishermen and these folks that have nets, they do not want sharks in that net because it's all about, they want to pull that net, get their fish, get their catch and go home. They don't want to say, okay, great. Now we have to drag all these nets out, take them home, repair them, miss days of fishing and have to go through it again. So, but thank you. Thank you for that question. Yes. Yeah, so the question is there some type of honor system? So if somebody catches a shark and there's a tag in it, do they return it? The answer, unfortunately, is no. We have to be hopeful that that person is concerned about science or understands the value of that. So a researcher at URI put a Mako shark in a tag in a Mako shark last year. That tag started to show up at a dock. Then the tag showed up in a house. That tag showed up in a freezer. So it's legal to take a Mako shark. So we really hope that people, which is why I have my name on them and my phone number, which is please call us, just, because I know some people, some people in this room caught a Mako shark last week and took it home. You can do that. It's legal to do that. That's fine. It's federally allowed. You have your permit, you take the Mako shark, you can do that. I wouldn't do it, but that's just me. But I'm not saying you're a bad person because you do it. You go out, you've never fished before, you're out with your kids. Oh my Lord, it's a Mako shark. You want to take it home. If you want to do that, you can do that. Some people look and say, oh boy, it's got a tag in it. What do we do? Geez, I don't want to be involved. I don't want somebody to talk a shark. So sometimes tags just disappear, unfortunately for us. But most of the time, I'd say about 90% of the time, we're good. Particularly, but if they go into other countries and some places, now it gets a little, they don't want you to know how many sharks they're taking. Yep. Any other questions? Yes.
The two girl sharks that were together, do sharks hang out? Like, are they friends?
Yeah. So the two girl sharks that were caught together, do they hang out? Do sharks school together? So it's been interesting with these juveniles, these young of the year, these new. Yeah, when we find a spot, we're finding a few of them. So it looks like they might be learning how to fish together, learning how to, live together, et cetera. Where, some of the times, some of the other sharks we've run into as they get larger, one a day is not uncommon. You fish all day and you might get one. Where in these other cases, I'm fishing only 300 yards from another boat. I'm on, he's on, I'm on, he's on. But they tend to come in hour and a half, 2 hours, and then gone. So it seems like they're coming into an area together, picking up on opportunities, taking advantage of them, and then away they go. It just seems to, because we say, oh, it's great, we're going to stick it out an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours for us. And you say, darn it, I should have left again. But you don't want to do it because you're fishing and it's important. Thank you. Yes.
Where do you think they're going in the off season?
Yeah. So the question is, where do I think these sharks are going in the off season? These sharks are all temperature based. It's all temperature based. So for instance, the blue shark we showed you earlier, blue shark can't regulate its body temperature, meaning it can't increase its body temperature. So a blue shark gets caught in the wrong water. That's a big problem for a blue shark. So typically it's all about temperature. So you look at a blue shark, 55 degrees, you'll start to see him 60, 65, 70. There's a range they really love. Gets too warm, they start to disappear. Too cold, they disappear. So a lot of these sharks, it's pretty much clockwork. That as I can watch the water temperatures, we have satellite water, temperature feeds, and you can watch the water temperatures changing. And I can tell you the white sharks, the blue sharks, the Makos, how everybody kind of gravitates up. And then everybody has a great summer up here in New England. The water starts to get cold and they all turn around and they all head back down, with the exception of the poor beagle. Poor beagle's here all year round, but the rest of them, that's why we don't have the receivers in year round. I'd be sure, I think we'd lose them, but we're not going to detect anything here. But poor beagle sharks in the winter months, it's not worth it for us. But that's what's neat about the Mako shark, can regulate its body temperature, the great white. So there's several sharks, but not a lot of them. Yes.
Type of tag, the most expensive one?
Yeah.
That it just releases itself after a certain period of time?
Yes.
So with the shark measuring all those things you want to measure.
Yeah.
How long does it actually stay with them? When it gets released, it's done.
Yes.
There's
Yeah.
data, right?
Yep. Okay. So the question is the pop-up satellite tag, the $4,000 tag. How long does that tag operate for? And how long does it stay with the shark? And once it releases, is that the end of the data? Yes. Once it releases, that's the end of it. We can program that tag. So it's really like anything else. It's just got a certain amount of memory in it. So if we say we want to record things every second in high definition detail, and we want to record a bunch of stuff, then the reality is that it may not be able to be out there that long because it's consuming so much of that memory. Versus if we want to, if we want to just study a couple of elements over a long period of time, but it's really neat. You've got the tag inside of it. You've got this cable that connects it, and then you've got these little clips, and they corrode at a very specific rate. It's really neat. So in salt water, this clip will erode in 7 days. This one will, erode in 2 weeks, a month, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. So they're programmed to pop off. So they just erode, and they're remarkably accurate. So basically you program it for a year, you say, okay, come on. And it's rolling around, and then suddenly, boom, you get a satellite kick. It comes on your computer and says, hey, we're starting to get data from tag number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And you're like, perfect. So it's an exciting time because you never really know with those pop-up satellites if they're working, because you never hear from them for a long, long time. And sometimes you never do.
So it's getting on to almost 8:30.
Yes,
So,
good point.
well, you can answer some more questions, but maybe just one or two more, whatever you'd like to, John.
Okay, sure. If anybody can answer one or two more questions, if anybody has any more. Yes,
So you had mentioned that you have stone sharks tag and the yellow buoys are detecting them. You said in the beginning, that's just the ones that are tagged.
correct.
So there's a percentage of sharks that are coming to Block Island that we don't know about because they're not tagged.
Correct.
And there seems to be an area, between here and Montauk where maybe they're delivering their babies.
Yeah.
So mom and dad were mating in this area and mom does not stay with her baby, so she's out of the area. Is there a possibility that there's any moms or dads that are passing through here on their way up to Cape Cod that we don't know about?
Yeah. Okay. So the question is, gee, we got a lot of sharks that have been in the area. We've got these small, young of the year and these juveniles in this area. Does that mean mom and dad are mating here? Does that mean mom and dad are residing here? Let's think a little bit more about that. So the answer to that question is no. These females, so mom and dad have this mating event and they're done. And a long time later, a year, depending upon what shark species we're talking about, could be 18 months, the mother gives birth. So they're carrying these babies for a long, long time. When you're looking at these really tiny great whites, that 3.5 foot, 4 foot great, that's a newborn. So that mother came through here, picked a good time to come in terms of temperature, time of year, a lot of food, a lot of bait, perfect time to say to my newborn, here's a safe place to be. You're not going to get eaten. The water temperature is to your liking. There's a lot of food. Kick off your life in a productive way. But that does mean, yes, that these large pregnant sharks, females, have found from here all the way along Long Island, New Jersey. This is absolutely a nursery area, which is really valuable for these sharks as they've chosen this area to give birth, which is really remarkable for us when you think about the population worldwide. And that's why us catching these small ones on rod and reel and being able to get this close to them is super valuable for the research. And we just happen to be with the Atlantic Shark Institute and Dr. Craig O'Connell out of New York, who was on Shark Week 10 times. Craig and we're fishing every other day. We're close to each other in our boats and chatting and talking and everything else. Really valuable. So Craig's been great. So it's really a partnership between the Atlantic Shark Institute, the OC's Foundation with Craig O'Connell, and Dr. Greg Scommel out of Mass Marine Fisheries. And we're all, every time we get one, guess what? So
One more question?
if you want to go to the last slide too, there's just,
Oh,
it's
there's
just,
another
that's okay. No, it talks a little about how to find us. So great. Any other questions? One more question.
Climate change. So
Climate change.
If we need cold water, we're in trouble,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, so climate change, what's going on there? We're a little concerned. I'll tell you why. I've been doing this for decades. I'll give you a perfect example. Blue sharks, right? Blue sharks used to love this area throughout the entire summer. I'm not seeing that as much anymore. I've caught over 1,000 sharks on rod and reel. I've tagged over 500. And I can tell you, not anecdotally, I can go to my research. I can look at I know every shark. My wife would enjoy this, but I know every shark I've ever caught. I know the bait they took. I know the depth that shark did it at. I know the water temperature. I know the air temperature. I know exactly where I was. I know the sex of that shark. I know it all. Over 1,000 of them. And I can tell you that the number of sharks that are here in the summertime, we're seeing a change, right? We just fought a large black tip shark near Montauk 3 days ago. Unheard of. George, we went to dinner tonight. He went out with Captain Andy D'Angelo last week. First time ever, he caught a tiger shark. Caught a hammerhead that day. So we're starting to see warmer water sharks that are coming here on a more consistent basis. And I'm seeing some of the blue sharks. And the reason we chased those two females all over the place, because we got near Martha's Vineyard where the water was a little cooler. So there's absolutely a direct correlation. What concerns us about that is we don't want to see all these sharks concentrated in really small areas where they're all competing for the same food resource. Food resources spread, the sharks are spread, we're good. Suddenly all that food is in one spot and all those sharks are competing, typically means someone's not getting everything that they need or they'd want. So. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.